went to give the beat, too much like this, and this big hunk of phlegm came out and hung right on my chin.
Oh, gross.
Huge thing. And it's the last chord of the song, and the choir's singing fortissimo. They're all looking at it, and half of them are getting sick, and the other ones are laughing uncontrollably. But the worst thing was, with the last thing in the song, I had to turn around to the audience. I didn't know what to do, because I thought, what am I going to see? So I went like this.
Oh!
It all disappeared back in. I swallowed it. I turned around to the audience, but nothing happened. The choir's all there. It was pretty gross. This was, I don't know, probably 1980 something.
That's pretty sick.
That was pretty sick.
That's pretty sick, Dr. B.
Now, here's some classic tour stories. There are some classic ones. Probably the most classic one that I can ever remember, a lot of you have heard this, some of you may have seen it if you've been with us long enough, was we had this guy one year named Cameron Dean, and Cameron was...
none of us were inside.
I can safely talk about him. I don't want to talk about shit, but since you don't even know him, I guess I can talk about him. But he was a pretty unique individual. He did all kinds of things, but...
I'm annoyed.
Picture this. This was on our last tour to Florida before this one. We're going on this year. And we had a concert in South Georgia at a big art center one night in Thomasville. We had to sing at Disney the next day at 10 o'clock. So after the concert, we had to get on the bus at 10 at night or so, or 11 after the concert, and drive most of the night down to South Florida so we could go to Disney the next day and sing at 10. So we're on I-10, right? I-10 is a huge road going down to Florida, down to the Orlando area. Traffic worse than I-75, 24 hours a day traffic. So Keith burns out a light bulb in the front of the bus. One of his headlights burns out. So he decides he needs to stop by the side of the road and put a new bulb in the headlight. And one of the guys in the choir, this Cameron Dean, who was sort of a nut, he needed to go to the bathroom right out in the middle of it, I-10, no protection or anything. So he asked Keith if he can borrow his flashlight because he wanted to go to the bathroom. Now we figured he was going to take the flashlight and go out, and find a spot like this, through the woods and find a spot behind a tree or something. But he doesn't, I don't know if he either he's an exhibitionist or he wasn't thinking, or both, I don't know. But instead, he goes out beside the bus, with the whole bus full, in the middle of I-10, right out in the open, and he puts the thing on himself so he can find his fly. And he unzips his fly, and he opens himself up, and he proceeds to go all the time playing this song. All these cars are driving by, everybody in the bus ran to the side of the bus. We're all looking out the window like this, all the girls and everything, laughing at this guy in the middle of the night, taking a leak, right in a full spotlight, inside of I-10 in the middle of Florida. He really did that. That's Cameron Dean.
What did you say to when he got back on the bus?
Oh, I can't remember. I don't think we were two. We all couldn't believe it. We didn't know what to say. Unbelievable. He's one of the freshmen in the choir. So that's true.
What is his tour award?
Oh, boy, he had one, all right. He got a certificate of, I don't know the name of it.
Best member of the choir.
Angela!
Oh, I just now got that.
This is another, most of you have heard this story. That was a true story. All these things are true. We had a guy in the choir from West Virginia. His name was Jim Williamson. He's a great guy. Right now he's a professional cartoonist. Goes around the state of West Virginia, and he does shows in public schools and for handicapped people and all kinds of things. A real public servant kind of a guy, a great cartoonist. This guy, if any of you have read of Mice and Men, he was like the character Lenny in Mice and Men. Immensely strong guy. He's about 6'6" or 6'7". His arms about twice the size of mine. In the old grade, those of you will remember, the stage came up to about here when you stood on the floor. And he could take those risers that we take on tour with one hand, like this, on the floor down there, and he just lifted them up onto the stage like that with one hand. He's so strong. But he's also kind of like Lenny in that he was not always sort of in touch with the world. He was kind of a big, bulky guy, but not always with it. Like Alan Pike stood next to him in the choir. And all the time I would be seeing Alan looking at him, and Jim would be singing like this. And then Alan would reach in, and he'd pull out a different piece and put it out, because Jim would have the wrong piece. He didn't even know. He'd just be singing along, be the wrong music, and Alan would reach into his folder in the middle of rehearsal and pull out the right piece and give it to him. That's Jim. But here's what happened on tour. We were staying in Indianapolis one time, and Jim went out. He was a big physical buff kind of a guy. He went out like 5 in the morning to jog in his subdivision, and he had gotten permission from his host and hostess that when he finished his early morning jog, he could go rummage around the kitchen, cook his own breakfast because they didn't want to get up at 5 and 6 in the mornings. They said he could do it. So Jim goes out and he does his jogging for half an hour or so, and he goes back into this house and he starts making breakfast and messing around. Next thing he knows, the cops come in with loaded guns and they're pointing at him. He went to the wrong house. He didn't go back to his own house. He couldn't remember where he was. He went to some stranger's house, and it happened to be open. He went in there and he started messing around the kitchen, cooking breakfast. The people called the cops. They were upstairs, and he got arrested. But also, he wasn't always with it, as I said. So the first thing the cops said, you know, what's your story? What's your alibi? Well, I'm from Berea College, and we heard you doing a concert last night. And they said, we'd like to confirm that. So where did you sing? What's the name of the church? I don't know. He didn't know anything about it. He never knew that kind of stuff. So he was in a heck of a mess. And I can't remember how it finally worked out, but I finally got a call from the cops. They finally traced it to me, and I called and said that, yes, he was legit, and yes, he was with us and all that, and we sprung him out. That's a true story, too. He did get arrested in this house for going to the wrong house after jogging and messing around. That's Jim Williamson, all right? So, well, what else? Oh, yes, the Brindy and Greg story. Now, that was,
yeah.
I was there.
now you got to picture this. Brindy Joy
And Greg
is
mentioned
sort
kind
of
of looked like
like,
Jesus.
I think
Yeah.
she's still here.
He did look like
She's a
Jesus.
very sweet and wonderful person. She's very kind of shy, like Teresa. I mean, never said much.
Like
about
who?
her.
He says a lot now.
She does now,
That's
but
one of those.
in those days, she was especially quiet and sweet, and you know, didn't like any fuss made of her and everything. Very like that. So anyway, here we are on tour one day, and for those of you that don't know, we usually during the day we're down the highway. We usually stop at some place with like 5 or 6 fast food places, and we let everybody go to whatever restaurant they want in the nearby area. Because if we all go to one place, 73 people, it would take 3 hours to eat. You know, that many people get.
It take as long as it took us to do this.
Anyway, as long as it takes to do the introduction. Okay.
Yeah, for real.
So this one day we show up at this place, and I think it was New York, right? We in
No, we were in Maine.
Well, we'd been in Maine. We were on our way
No, I
back.
thought we were in Maine still. Maybe we were in.
You might have been in.
Well, anyhow, we were in New
Place
England.
doesn't really matter.
New
But we were
England.
on the way home. From
Yeah,
New England
van.
to it. And we stop at this place, and it looks like there are 3 or 4 restaurants that'll be fine. And we all go out, but a couple of them were closed. Like they're only open Monday, Thursday, and Friday or something, or Wednesday, or you know, that kind of thing. There was only this one restaurant. We all piled in there. It was obvious that there's no way we're going to get out of there in an hour with all of us. So after we'd already unloaded the vans and dispersed to these places, I volunteered to get back in the van and drive a bunch of people to another exit so we could disperse the crowd. So I go out and get in this van, and I'm sitting there starting it up and stuff, and I hear this kind of rustling in the back, and I turn around, and out of these mounds of clothes and stuff pop 2 little heads, Brindy Joy and Greg Messer, one of the basses in our choir, and they've been sort of in under the clothes on the seat or the floor or something down there in the back of the van, thinking they were going to have an hour or so of privacy, and then good old Dr. B comes in and kind of ruins their fun. But poor Brindy was incredibly embarrassed.
But what
She
did
was
Dr.
like,
V say? I would have been doing the same exact thing if I was there. He came and told me
I didn't
in
say
Italy.
that. I was trying to make him feel comfortable, I guess. I don't remember. But poor Brindy was darker than Teresa's turtleneck. I mean, she was so embarrassed. She was amazed. She didn't even talk for about 2 hours. She was like, she was so embarrassed. And then they proceeded to sort of get cleaned up and everything. It was too funny.
Can we tell the Mr. Quarter story that in St. Peter's
Sure.
Basilica?
What's
He
that?
tells the best story about this.
Oh,
I'll tell you. Let you say what he says. Okay, wait. Somebody can. Anyhow, whenever the choir went to St. Peter's, whenever we went to Italy, we had it was the Rome, the St. Peter's 500, Siena 500. We had to get all these places. We didn't have very good guides.